Thanks everyone for coming today. It's great to have all our partners here, guests and friends of the team. As Rob said, we're going to be introducing all our riders shortly, and then we've got a Q&A with a panel, and we'll be inviting questions from you guys if you've got anything you want to bring up. Firstly, we've got a short film for you, produced by our creative partners, Blue Strawberry Elephant. Hope you enjoy it. Sam is one of 5 new riders for this year. He's actually 19 today. Sam had some real success last year nationally in this country and internationally. We're sure he's going to be a real asset to the team and make good use of the opportunity. What attracted you to wanting to ride for Cycling Sheffield, Sam?
As I was looking through for teams for 24, I was sort of thinking about sort of development and which team can give me that best sort of ability to develop my racecraft, because I'm fairly new to cycling. I've only been doing it for about a year and a half now. So yeah, it was just sort of which team would support me best in my racecraft development, and I looked at the other teams and I just thought this was the best team for it.
Cheers. Thank you, Sam. Alex? Along with Sam, Alex is our first year under 23. He's 18 years old and again showed some real promise with some good results at national level and in Europe last year. How's it been with the team so far? I know we're just about to start racing, although you did have a bit of a false start last week. Alex raced fairly locally last week, and I think probably was on for a decent result, but managed to fall down a huge pothole which smashed his way to pieces. How has it been with the team so far? We've spent as much time as has been possible together through the winter. How have you found it so far?
Yeah, it's my first impressions of Cycling Sheffield is extremely well organised and professional. but yeah, in all seriousness, you know, it's been great fun with the boys. We've had some good humour, and yeah, I hope it stays
Yeah.
fun.
There'll be ups and downs, trust me.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, Alex. James. This is James Hartley.
Hello everyone.
James is 20 years old. This is his 3rd year with the team. The last 2 years, his results and his development has had steady progress. I still think there's a lot to come this year.
I hope so. I hope so.
How do you think this year is going to differ from last or even the last 2 with the team?
I think the
For you?
small amount of experience I have with the British races is going to be helpful towards other lads. I also want to win, obviously. But
Or did you not last year?
I think my desire is almost greater this year after, you know, missing opportunities last year in France, because I've seen riders that I was beating week in, week out, go and get opportunities in France that I didn't get last year, and that almost fueled me even more. So to do bigger and better races this year, and better in those races,
And make, you know, and make better use of some of the opportunities in races.
Of course, yeah.
So James is a real tough racer, but
I like to get involved.
sometimes a little bit too active,
Yeah.
you know, and he'll finish somewhere in the top 5 when, you know, if he'd have been a little bit more experienced, you know, that might have been a win.
But that's why I'm
But
here.
that's experience.
Yeah,
And yeah,
thank you, Dave.
and remembering your kit. You forgot your shorts. Fortunately, we had a spare pair. Jack. This is Jack Hartley, James's brother. Jack's another one of the riders new to the team this year. He's a big talent, had some solid results last year, and recently really made a big impression on the track after riding the velodrome for the very first time mid-January.
We had 7 weeks to national champs,
Yeah,
which isn't a lot of experience against Olympians.
yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So, with the opportunity you're going to get this year, where would you like to be for next year?
Well, being sort of a bigger guy with a kick at the end, I think Belgian and Dutch terrain suits me best. Some French terrain might suit me as well. So, with the opportunities available to race abroad, to race for a European team next year, is sort of where my intentions lie.
And
I suppose.
we'll do our best to
Yeah.
help him make that step. That's very much what we're about.
Mhm.
Cheers,
Thanks, Dave.
Jack. Thank you. David.
Hi.
David Hurd is another one of our new riders for this year. David's 21. David had some great results last year, including winning the final event in the National Under-23 series. That race was at the end of last season. This year it's in a little over a month. It's actually a very local race to David down in the southwest. I'm guessing you're pretty motivated for that this
Yeah,
year?
yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to it, and yeah, the series as a whole, really, the under-23 series will be a good aim for.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it, and
Yeah.
I'm sure it's an aim for a lot of the rest of the team as well.
The National Under-23 series is, I think, this will be its 3rd year. We managed to win it overall last year, including winning one of the races, and I think we were in the top 3 or top 5 in every race. So it's a bit of a feather in the cap for this team. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers, David. Max. Max was with the team last year, but had a season blighted by bad luck. Managed to pick up some injuries that sort of, well, I won't say ended your season because you
From
you
May
start
to August.
you started it and ended it, and managed to, you know, put in a couple of, you know, solid rides at the end of the season, so that it felt like you finished the season, which for me was important, so that you went into the winter feeling like you'd finished the season.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to for next year, this year?
I think probably just providing a bit more for the team and also getting a bit more out of myself. Like, started Lincoln, and then it'd just be nice to, I guess, be more of a part of racing and helping out.
A
Like
consistent season.
yeah, and it was nice last year being able to help out in some races and then
Yeah.
come and watch and support, but maybe
Yeah.
doing more of that on the road instead of
And-
standing at the sidelines.
And although your season was massively impacted due to injury, what were the highlights last year?
Probably getting the chance to go out to Germany for Eschborn, Frankfurt, the under-23 race. That was pretty good, being able to do a proper big
Yeah, it was a-
European under-23
it was a
race.
Big UCI under 23 race.
Yeah, and then like Dave said, Beaumont Trophy at the end of the year, the last national series race. That was good to just kind of have an aim to go towards, and then seeing that, yeah, not just being useless in that race, getting around it was quite
Well,
nice.
you contributed.
Yeah.
You contributed, and we got a result there.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, it was a good way for you to end the season.
Yeah.
Give you a bit of morale, carry into the winter.
Yes, hopefully do more of that again
More of that.
this year. Yeah.
More bike racing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Matt is another of our new riders for this year. Matt's probably, well, undoubtedly, I'd say the most experienced rider on the team. So, sort of unofficial road captain. Albeit only 23. But yeah, no pressure. He's a proven race winner. You know, capable of getting results in all the races in the UK and in Europe. Are there any race in particular you're looking forward to this year?
Well, this year I really want to do well at the national series. Obviously, there's only 4 or 5 rounds, and last year, for various reasons, crashing, injuries, etc., just didn't get any good results there. And I knew I was capable of it from my other results,
Yeah.
like because I won a couple of races of similar level, like
Yeah.
in Ireland and stuff, and so really hope to get some good top 10s, top 5s, even podiums maybe in the national series.
Yeah, the talent's definitely there, and you've put the work in. I think it's just, you know, a little less or no bad luck and a bit more luck as all of you need.
Yeah.
Cheers, Matt.
Cheers, then.
Wordy.
Now then.
Last but not least, James Wordsworth or Wordy.
Yeah. No, we can do it like little arm. That's a nice thing, isn't it? It's nice.
Don't get cornered on your own with this guy.
I want to cuddle him, honestly.
You've thrown me now. I can't even remember what I'm supposed to say. Yeah, Wordy had a quiet start to the season last year, sort of impacted with a bit of illness and injury. But from sort of June onwards, it just got better and better every week and ended on a real high with a top 10 result at the last big race of the year, which for me, I think should have given you some confidence to sort of believe in yourself a bit more. He's a real generous guy, and I think he's in his head, his go-to is help the other guy, you know. But he's an enormous engine, so he's very, very capable. So, and along those lines, how do you think you've sort of developed over the last year with the team?
Oh, massively, Dave. No, I'd been racing for myself as a sort of lowly student, and the minute you put a Cycling Sheffield jersey on, you treat it differently in the bunch, and you either step up or sort of fall. Yeah, but the attitude we have, being able to race sort of after a few weeks of racing, you're almost a cohesive team unit. It's quite special, really, because not every team in the UK races like a team, and I think as my legs sort of came and matured throughout the season, it felt like we could really do that and really profit on it. And it's lovely to share some team results as well as trying to nail it for yourself as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers, James.
It's all right.
Thank you, riders. You got it.
So we've got an opportunity this year to have a bit of a Q&A with an esteemed panel. I'm not going to make the gag about they couldn't turn up, so we've got you instead. But if I could ask you all just to introduce yourselves, some of you will be familiar. But just to introduce yourself, say a little bit about who you are, and maybe what your relationship with cycling is. So I guess Dave, I should probably start with you. So introduce, and what's your kind of relationship with cycling, and a bit about your background.
So as I think everybody's aware, I run the team. I was an OK rider for quite a long time. Loved the sport, ridden bikes. The day after I could walk, I think. So that's where racing just kind of happened. In my sort of mid-teens, I think. And then I guess I kind of finished racing, and then got pulled into managing a team under duress, and that kind of where this began, I guess. And this is the 11th year with this team.
And what was the motivation? I mean, why
It's the only thing I know
start
anything
it?
about.
You probably ask yourself that question, don't you?
Yeah, definitely a moment.
Yeah.
I don't know. I partly, I feel I've got a lot of knowledge and experience, and whilst I was never under the illusion that I could have won the Tour de France and I was ever going to be a big deal, but on reflection, I think I could have been better, more successful, more consistent than I was, and I thought maybe I can help other riders with that, and so that's what this team is working hard to do, really. And when it's good, it's really rewarding. I acknowledge that if we had riders, if the average age was 5 or 7 years older, we'd win a lot more races, but it wouldn't be as satisfying for me personally. And I think if that's the team we're just another team that's, if you're not the team with the most money in the country, or you're not Ineos, you're just another team that's just there. Whereas, we're looking for another Connor Swift story, and maybe one of them's here today.
Maybe, yeah. Thanks, Dave. James, you've heard a bit about you and how did you get into cycling?
I initially was a runner and began to get injured too much, so as a form of rehab for running, I took up cycling, went out with my brother, who was also taking it up at the time, and my dad, who was a triathlete. I know. Emphasis on was. And I began to find that cycling was just a much more enjoyable sport. It was injury free, which helped, and I felt a real sense of freedom and just much more enjoyment and happiness came from it. And then obviously the passion for it grew, and I wanted to try and be the best at it, and naturally went to racing. Missed out my first year as a junior because of that pandemic, and then raced nationally, managed to top 10 at the junior national champs, which is, I feel, a big contributor to getting on this team. And then found Dave, and he seemed to like him.
And we'll leave that there. Great. Max?
Maxine Gregory. I know my name's not on that screen, but I wouldn't like you to think I'm a last minute replacement. I'm just someone better that came through. So I've bumped somebody off. Maxine Gregory. I work for Sheffield Hallam University as part of Rob's team here at the AWRC, looking after one of our research themes with a colleague, Kath, which is all about Healthy Active 100. So trying to help everybody from birth right up to 100 years to keep healthy and active throughout the whole of their life course, really. I also co-lead a research group that is all focused on active travel. So part of my job is quite often saying cycling is not just all about men in lycra, but
today like it is.
Today it is. I do quite a lot of sports, but I have no talent in any of them at all. I do cycle a bit, and my husband and son are super keen mountain bikers on their way to Wales in a couple of hours as well. So cycling in many formats is a big part of my life and holidays as well. So.
Thanks. And then if I can come over to this side, Mark.
Yeah, I'm a partner at Blue Strawberry Elephant, which you'll see on the jerseys, and we're quite proud to have that on there. Primarily my day job is we're a graphic design agency, so we do branding, web design, exhibition graphics, vehicle liveries, you name it. So we basically apply Cycling Sheffield brand across everything you see, social media, all the planning with Dave. And also we just helped launch the support packages that you've seen the QR codes out there, just to try and boost the income for Dave. So we come up with all the creative ideas, and on a regular basis we sit down in the office with Dave and thrash stuff out of him, because it's just all a collaborative partnership really. We've done that for about 8 years I think. So from Envelope Master, when that then went to Bike Box, as soon as it became Cycling Sheffield, we saw that as an opportunity to be able to support the team in terms of their web presence, and from there it's just really grown, and we were quite proud to support Dave. You know, I've known Dave from when I was racing, so it was nice to be able to put something back into the sport, and then from there, outside of the day job that does run into the day job, as Charlotte probably knows, I'm the secretary of Sheffield Cycling Club, which is based in Sheffield. I'm the vice chair of British Cycling Yorkshire. I'm a member of Road Commission, the organiser of Sheffield Grand Prix, Monster Hill Climb, and the vice chair. The chair of the White Rose Youth League. So we kind of started. We started basically organising events over at Woolwell. We used to run sessions on a Monday night, and Russ and Dean down in an actual sort of come out of that. So they're with Trevor, so I used to help coach, and from there then, God knows why, I started organising races. I was quite good at it, and then before I know it, I've got the Sheffield Grand Prix that takes 3 months of my life up without getting paid.
And you've been a long time supporter of the team. What is it about teams like Cycling Sheffield? You know, why are they so important to the domestic scene?
See, we've seen a massive shift in cycling over the last 10 years. You know, we had the Halcyon days. Russ and Dean are sat up there and know full well the years of NFTO, Madison Genesis, those big. I mean, I think Team Sky kicked it all off. That had a massive impact on the UK scene, because they saw all these blue chip, all the fancy coaches coming along, and then before you know it, NFTO are tipping up with John Wood pouring £1 million plus into the sport, which for me, I saw that as a great opportunity for everyone, but it was never going to last. You know, those budgets could fuel Dave's team for 10 years. So, and then eventually that bubble did burst, and now we're left with teams like Cycling Sheffield that are punching well above their weight, because you've got teams like St. Piran now, UCI, there's different levels, so the UCI Conti teams are still allowed to race against elite development teams in the UK, and these guys all know it's hard to compete because they're pretty much full-timers. So, but now, obviously seeing James Mackay last year punching above his weight, beating Alexander Richardson down at the Timmy James Memorial, that was the first hang on a minute, this is the year that maybe Dave's hard work was going to pull off. And James, to his credit, said that last year was going to be a big year because he wanted to put something back, and he owed it back to Dave. And you lads will know that James, he transformed himself to become an absolute, elite level athlete. Whereas, I saw on Strava a couple of weeks ago, he'd done 128 miles in 8 hours, 15,000 feet of climbing on the Friday. And on the Saturday morning, I'm going over strides, and who pops up behind me, and it's James again on another 8-hour ride. And he shouldn't have even been on his bike, but he's just that level of athlete where he's absolutely committed. And it's been nice to see Dave get the EDT status, which is elite development team. So British Cycling look at the team as a whole. They look at all the background to Dave's team, make sure it's sturdy, viable, safeguarded. So I'm your safeguarding officer, by the way, as well. So if you have any problems, but yeah, I'll chat to the list.
So the kind of the growth obviously has been largely and partly driven by investment, but it also is about data and kind of the use of data. And I might just ask Ben to kind of introduce yourself and talk a little bit about ValueViewer and what that does, Ben, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm Ben Lowe. I am the coder behind ValueViewer. So ValueViewer initially was for people to look at their own Strava data, and that still is a big part of the business. And then back in 2017, Team Sky were the first team to start using it. I built a bespoke package working with a couple of their DSs, Derry Kearney and Nico Portal, and we worked together to build a package that was used for the team. And then other teams wanted to use it. And so over the years since then, there's more and more teams using it. About 130 teams now, and then some race organisers, some UCI commissaires use it. So that package itself has grown to be used quite widely now. The Eurosport commentators like to use it as well, which is always very nice when they mention it. Me personally, I've always cycled since I was like 12, 13 years old, trying to keep up with my older brother, who was always better than me. So I think my crowning glory was the Vets champs at Monceau Hill Climb, when I got the Vets record as well, until Russ took about 20 seconds off. Should have stayed 39, Russ, and then I would have kept it.
And Ben and VeloViewer are another of our great sponsors. You didn't mention it.
I'll come back to you, Ben, in a bit more about data, and then our final panellist joined at the last minute. Thanks, Rod Allingworth. Just want to introduce yourself. You probably don't need an introduction in this context, but right.
Okay, yeah. So, hi everybody. Thanks for inviting me, and it's great to be here. It's really nice. I haven't been part of the British scene for quite a while, but it's really nice to sort of see what's happening. And we've known each other. We go back a long time from them racing days, and I think like you a little bit. That's how I sort of got into coaching, and I felt like I wasn't racing at any of the top level, but I did feel like I could offer something to young people, and that's where I started in British cycling back in the early 2000s. Very fortunate with the way that the funding model worked with British cycling at the time. We were able to go into schools and talent ID, and I was part of that for a couple of years in the early 2000s, and then sort of went into the central programme of British cycling, working across the under-23 national team, and then was part of a four-man group who created Team Sky. We started that in 2008, and the team got undergoing in 2010. And sort of, we went on that journey with Dave Brailsford and the likes for all that time. I mean, some brilliant memories. But, mainly background for me is cycling. From Grantham, Lincolnshire, a small cycling club. My dad organising bike races. In the local club, there's two memorial trophies, one for my great-granddad, one for me granddad. So cycling is at the heart of what I've always done, and I just love everything about it, to be honest. I'm not currently working at the minute, but still watch all the bike races, and like I say, it's great to be here, so thanks for the invite.
Brilliant, nice, pleasure to have you. So I've got a couple of additional questions, but I'd be encouraging you to think about things that you might want to ask this panel. Dave, it's 10 years, I think, this year, celebrating your relationship with Cycling Sheffield. What have you learned over those 10 years? And the second part of that is today's International Women's Day. Any plans for a women's cycling Sheffield team? And if so, how might that happen?
I'll answer that first. No, there's no plans, but not for any other reason than I'm already up against it, running this team, and I've been asked that before, and I would love to. It's a great thing to do, but it's just money, really. It's down to money. Running a bike team in this country is never not going to be very challenging. and to then say, right, let's times that by 2. It's, you know, I'm daft, but I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
What have I learnt over the last 10 years? I don't know, probably a lot of transferable skills, you know. My wife said you'd be really employable if you know, if you ever wake up and stop doing what you're doing. No, joking aside, she's very supportive. I'll just get that in. I think one of the things I've learned that I think I always knew is that I think the most important thing with the relationship, from my perspective, with riders, is that relationship. It's the emotional part of it, particularly young riders. But you know, and I think Rod would probably agree, irrelevant of their age, it's the sport is very, very tough, and when you're doing it at the age these lads are, it's extra tough. So my focus is predominantly and always kind of first and foremost is their kind of well-being and developing that relationship. You know, the sport has become more complex and scientific, but the reality of that is that kind of makes all that stuff easier. You know, but it doesn't equate for, you know, everything is analysed and so much is quantified, but so the stuff that makes the difference is the stuff that's nigh on impossible to quantify, and I think that's what I like to try and work hard at that, you know. So I think I've learned that, or kind of confirmed to myself that that's probably, yeah, the most important thing. And just trying to be consistent and having integrity in what you do. And quoting James McKay, that was on the team last year and the 2 previous years, he said to me, which was very nice. He said, being on this team, you get a lot more than you see at face value. You learn a lot more, which was a nice thing to say, and I think that's what all teams should be like. You know, I mean, I remember years ago reading an article about Sky and hearing the term rider-centric quoted, and I thought, well, all teams should be like that. So, yeah, the human being is the important thing.
Rod, do you want to say a bit more about what rider-centric meant at that time? Is that a term that you used?
Yeah. I think we sort of termed it right, like riders being at the centre of the programme. So I think for the years that I'd raced and the experience that we'd had, and then studying, so 2007, 8, 9, I sort of went out around all the World Tour teams. So I was coaching Cav and a few of the guys at the time. And what I noticed was it was all about, it was manager led. It was nothing about bike riders. The bike riders was like, well, we just pay you, you just turn up. But it was all sort of, as long as the managers were all happy and had a good sort of time, that's what it seemed to be. And I felt like we could get a real head start here, put the riders right in the centre of it, make them the most important people, because they are. The athletes are everything, you know, it's the value there. And that's what we were doing. So we were doing that in British cycling, very much so in the mid-2000s, you know, and then really sort of pushed that into Team Sky. We just kept exactly the same concept and put that into Team Sky, which was, you know, the riders being at the centre of the programme, and everything was built around them.
Yeah. And again, you mentioned there, Dave, about, you know, monitoring and data and things. But I mean, where do you see the sort of future of technology or data going? What's your kind of, you know,
I think
perception on that?
it's still, from the outside, everyone probably imagines it's like Formula One, where everyone's like, we're all using the latest tech all the time, but there's a lot of, like Rod was saying, there's a lot of old school people in cycling with the team managers, and over the years I've gone through the process of trying to get the director of sportives using my system, and it's been much easier with some that are much more, particularly ex-time trialists. They all seem to be really keen on that level of detail you have, whereas some of the more old school DSs they just want their paper map, and they're still used to having that, and their handwritten notes stuck to the steering wheel, and so trying to get them from that stage into embracing the technology, and usually it's once they've sat in a car with someone who's using it properly, they can understand the benefit, and then it comes on board. So I think teams now know that they have to embrace technology like Veliviewer. There's certainly room for improvement with the race organisers and potentially commissaires, yourself excluded. But in terms of being able to also use that sort of information, and it's this wider, safer group which the UCI has been setting up, that has the stakeholders of the riders and the teams and the race organisers to try and come up with a way to make riding safer. So with all those stakeholders using a tool like Veliviewer to know that the road gets narrow in 2 kilometres time, so don't start sending cars past, that simple things like that. If the commissaire, because sometimes the DS in the car knows it's going to get narrow, but the commissaire's waving them by and they're saying, we don't want to go by, we won't get past, and so if all that information is then embraced by everyone, then there's certainly lots of things like that that would help the whole situation.
Thanks. And for you, James, data, a kind of typical week, are you driven by
Passion, mate. It's all passion.
It's all passion. On a scale of 0 to 100, what, yeah.
I mean,
tell us about your typical week, and do you use data during that before the training?
Yeah. I think data is not something I obsess about in what you'd imagine as a normal cyclist my age would, I think, because you get juniors now with Garmin's the size of iPads, and they'll finish a race and just go and stare at it for an hour or something, or open training peaks, and it upsets me to some degree, because it's like you're doing it because you want to see how good you are, you're doing it because you enjoy it, and my opinion is that you should do it because you enjoy it. And I think morale is really important. That's the data I go off, and the data I do use and have is mainly for my coach, and it's obviously nice to see, you do a ride, got a new 5-minute power, wicked, but I'd rather, I don't know, go on an 8-hour ride with Jimmy the Blade and do it at snail's pace or something, because that's just more fun.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
As long as you get the balance right and you win races.
Yeah. But I think
it's not snail's pace though, is it?
No, well, it's like data's important and you can't just get rid of it. And when you ask about 0 to 100, I think I'm probably pretty in the middle. And I think, like Dave says, you have to be balanced, because if you become too obsessive, it takes the enjoyment out of it. But things like Veliviewer, I use Veliviewer quite regularly before races, etc. And I value things like that. But I put more value in whether or not I'm going to enjoy the race.
Yeah, that's great. And that sense of enjoyment, Max, if I come to you just before I open it up to other questions, one of the things that we talk about, how do we get the population more physically active? How do we make it kind of enjoyable? I mean, what's your view on the sort of active travel agenda and how we might get more people moving?
Yeah, it's really difficult to, if you are a cyclist and you've grown up being a cyclist from the day after you could walk, and you've always been on your bike, it's kind of your world, isn't it? It's what you know, it's your identity, it's a habit that you do, you don't even think about it, what you're going to do going out on your bike. But so it is really difficult to put yourself in other people's shoes, where cycling is just something, the idea of making a journey and going from A to B somewhere on a bike is just a really alien concept to some people. They've got, I heard someone mention it yesterday as a car brain, but you're almost automatically wired to, I'm going somewhere, open the door, get straight in the car. It's the most convenient way. But all the data would suggest there that, is that the most enjoyable way to travel? Obviously, if you're going, a couple of 100 miles, you might need to, or you might need to train.
Jimmy would ride it.
If you're just going down the road, or a little short journey, walking or going on your bikes, often a much more sensible option, and often a lot quicker and a lot less faff. But if you've not done it and you're not in that mindset, it's really difficult to get there, really. And the barriers, we're doing some work at the minute for Active Travel England, looking at reviewing all the evidence that's out there and taking really complicated scientific evidence and really understanding, so what does that mean to everyday people in their worlds. But the barriers and enablers to cycling are hugely different depending on who you are. So drawing the obvious one on International Women's Day again, but the motivations and the reasons for men cycling and women cycling really different. Women make really different kinds of trips to men, so it's really different for men and women, but also people from different backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, people with disabilities. There are a whole range of factors in play there. So it's all about kind of understanding that behavioural change process and then trying to build the infrastructure out there that makes cycling better and easier for all of us.
Thanks, Max. So I'm going to open it up. Anyone got any questions for our panel? Yeah, sure.
I've got a question for you, Dave. I love that you started by asking the riders what their intentions were. What are you looking forward to this season?
A month ago, I would have said the end of it.
You don't say the wins now, 'cause it's all about the enjoyment.
Yeah. Well, with regard to that, the riders that were on the team last year and changed the last 2 years will confirm that, you know, they're never going to hear me say, right, win. It's all just about the process. You do this, 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 and this. Don't do that, and that, and maybe something good happens because there's all these other blokes that we're not in control. I guess just the development, it's really rewarding. You know, it's always, you know, no disrespect, lads, but it's always a little bit 2 steps forward, 1 back, and some conversations we revisit. It's always the same. But on the whole, by the end of the season, I see that the riders have made good use of the opportunity, and you can see that wherever they go in, whether it's staying here for another year or moving on, they're in a better place, and the next year they can start to build on what they've done this year.
I have a question for Rod. Where did you sort of get the idea from, or have the epiphany with regards to Project Rainbow?
I think, well, first of all, I mean, one of the first interviews I did with Mark Cavendish, he was 16, and I think he said to me, I was like, what's your dreams, ambitions? And he said, I want to be world road race champion. So I sort of kept that as a bit, okay, he was like maybe 20 kilos heavier than he was when he won the Worlds. And, you know, I think just working with them young guys at that point, you start to see that. I always believed as a British bike rider, why can't we win? You know, and I remember going back when I was 16, I went Junior Worlds in Moscow, and I remember feeling like we were at the bottom of the pile. Yeah. You know, and all these Italians and everybody else. Armstrong was there racing. Everybody's talking about him being the next big hero. And I remember just feeling like we were completely inadequate in what we could do. But hang on a minute, we're not. You know, we're fighters. I think from the UK we fight well, and I think we've got a bit of balls about us. So it was all these sort of things that, you know, and over the time of just been out in France racing myself and thinking, hang on a minute, we're a lot better than we're showing. And I had this great opportunity with these young lads, you know, and we were, again, it was at that start of really the funding in British cycling. British cycling was very much focused on the track. Well, the thing is, I mean, what got me was they were very focused on the track, and I was like, hang on, but you've got to go a bit deeper than that. And if you ask the lads what they want to do, they all wanted to ride Paris-Roubaix or win or ride the Tour or whatever. And I was like, the British cycling journey is all good, and I got it, the funding model, but the ambitions of these lads are more. And Mark Cavendish was a classic one who said, I want to be world road race champion. So, you know, again, I just kept working with that, you know, and it came quite evident pretty soon that these guys were good enough, they were world class. And what I did do was very much with the young lads, and I think you lads are all in this category, you're all under 23. When you go ride under 23, you've got to be the best of the under 23. Yeah. Okay. When you go ride elite, then you can work very much on process goals and everything else. But I would very much say, right, if we're riding under 23, well, how do you win? You've got to go through all the processes, but your outcome has got to be it's all about winning. It's all about getting the performances right. How do you win? And that's what I did all the time with them lads, all the way through. So that was Geraint Thomas, Ed Clancy, all of these guys who are now, you know, all done pretty well out of cycling. And it was, you know, under 23, how do you win? Elite level, the process goals. And again, through all that process, you know, we could put this together. Yeah. And British cycling at the time didn't have the ambition to be world road race champion. I just kept driving it home, and I was very fortunate. I think Dave Brailsford was listening, and he also had an ambition to eventually have a road team and so forth. So it was 2007 when we put that together, in mind knowing that at some point there'll be a course at suits Cav. And then it came, I think it was end of 2008 when we got the behind the scenes a little bit, was told it's going to be in Copenhagen. I said, right, game on here. You know, so he rode his first World Road Champs in 2007 in, I think it was Stuttgart, can't remember, I'm looking at Rusk, maybe Rusk was there, I'm not sure. And the whole goal for Cav was just ride and feel and see how the national teams work. It's very different to the pro teams. You know, he'd already ridden the Tour, and he you know, was in his first year as a full-time pro. But it was all about like gaining the experience, because the national teams work different. And you've got all the different sort of scenarios of, you know, a Belgian guy working for the Italians, underhanded, and all this going off. You need to understand the game. So that's how it all started, you know, and we wrote that programme together, basically. Yeah.
Fascinating, thanks. Good question, James. Any other questions from the audience? Don't shy. Yeah, okay, so good, and then we'll come to you.
Dave and Grant, how do you use data like Bellevue in your team briefings, and can they go on too long, get too technical for the riders now?
Well, you know, I think everybody uses things quite different. I mean, certainly within Ineos at the moment, they have a pretty standard, what they, you know, no matter what bike race you're at, they'll deliver us very similar presentation every morning. And of course, you know, there's this whole safety aspect, but also just where they're going to tactically use their energy and everything else. It all comes back from your econs, and it all comes back from the knowledge of the roads. You know, the roads are absolutely fundamental to what we do. So I think when we started working with you, what year did you say it was?
I think it was 2017.
Yeah,
first season.
Yeah. You know, and you're talking about Nicolas Portal. You know, Nico was he grew up very much from the old French system. As a DS, he was taught by Sean Yates, who was very much a map man. And I would say Sean, if he's now working in the team, he's still using maps. However, Nico was right into his tech, and he could see the benefit here. Dario Cioni as well, very much could see the benefit of, like you said, just knowing exactly what's going on. It's one of the best tools in the world, I would say. I think you've got a great partner here.
So I'm writing that down.
Yeah, no, I think I really do. I think it's, I do honestly believe it's a fantastic tool, and it's changed the face of racing. You know, and I think a lot of the style of racing at the moment and the intensity of racing is because now people have got much more knowledge. You know, I mean, just one thing on the data thing. What I would always say, I think everybody's different. You know, some people just enjoy them, and some people are total tech nerds. What I think you've got to always do with technology is use it as it informs decisions. It doesn't tell you what to do. It just should inform better decisions going forward for the next day or so forth. So I think that's a big one.
I agree.
Technology, yeah.
And Dave, how anything to add around your particular use of it? If not, it's fine. But.
No, I don't think so. I mean, what I always try and do, and you know, is kind of simplify the race the riders have ahead of them. It's for some riders, it's really easy for them to overthink and worry too much about detail. So I think using some of the tech will take some of that worry away, so they can just focus on the stuff that's worth focusing on.
Yeah, that's helpful. So Jack, come to you for your question, and then maybe time for one more from the audience before we.
My question was for Dave, and it's why do you only have 8 riders?
8's enough, mate.
It's not a dig, it's just a question to say.
I think we were talking about 7, weren't you?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, it's hard to say there's a right number, but I think the teams like ours, I think if you have many more riders than we've got, I personally think it's probably a little bit cynical in that you can't give them all enough opportunity, and you could argue that the guy running the team is just making his life easier by having riders on the bench for when someone's not going well, sick or injured, is someone else. But you know, until that happens, that guy might be sat on the bench for a long time. It swings and roundabouts. When I'm proved right, it's really good, and you're all working well and you're all getting opportunities. When we have to go to a big race and there's only 3 riders because we've only got 8 to start with, that's when it's a bit, you know. But it's ups and downs. Is, you know,
bike racing, isn't it?
Bike racing, isn't it?
I think on our side of that question as well is that we get a lot from Damien's side in terms of nurturing, and that would be difficult with more riders.
Yeah, that I didn't want to really say that. Yeah, there's only one of me, and you know, yeah, the more riders, I'm spread thinner.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the audience?
Can you tell us about the link between Sheffield, other than just a name?
Yeah, I think, yeah, so I'd run the team for 3 years, and then we were losing the title sponsor, as all too often happens in cycling. And in spite of trying and getting very close to a replacement title sponsor, we sort of got very late in the year of 2016, and we were probably going to fold. And then I started thinking about this idea to have a team that was all about Sheffield, backed by Sheffield sponsors, and making a load of noise about Sheffield. And spoke to my wife about it, and it was a little bit, well, now or never. And I spoke to the sponsors that we did have, and they were all very supportive. And that the support from the sponsors really gave me the confidence to do it, because you know, I know something about bike racing, but I'm not a businessman, you know. And all our sponsors were saying, "Yeah, that's great, Dave," you know. So that kind of support and encouragement gave me the confidence to have a go at it, really. And so for the last 7 years, we've just worked to promote everything that Sheffield's got to offer. We've got a lot of links with all kinds of stuff going on in the city and the surrounding area that are nothing to do with bike racing, and part of that is driven by potentially has commercial value for the team, but also, you know, thinking as a proud bloke from Sheffield, the city's got a lot to offer, you know. And I think there's no shortcuts, and it's not easy, but you know, my lofty ambition for the team is to be something of value to the city, you know, something to be proud of in terms of our sporting success and developing, but also, you know, what it can potentially do. We've got strong links to the Sheffield Youth CC Cycling Club, and I already see, which has only been in existence a couple of years, of which I'm the chairman. I don't really do a lot, but I'm kind of the figurehead. But I see the team as being this shiny thing that the kids that turn up to training on Monday evenings a few miles down the road see, and they think, oh yeah, I might like to get into racing. And if they get into it, they see that the team is maybe a route to get into, you know, working with someone like Rod in a few years' time. So, and I think that's evident in last year we had 5 riders on the team from Sheffield, which whilst we're not world tour, but the criteria that I have to work to recruit riders means that the riders aren't 10 a penny, and to get 5 of them from the city, it's a big city, but it showed to me that the team was already having that effect. We're 3 riders based in Sheffield this year, and we don't know what that's going to be like next year, but I do think it's working in that respect. And the profile within the city and the Sheffield City region is growing year on year.
And finally, I know, Mark, from your perspective of organising races and, you know, developing the outdoor city brand with the city, teams like Cycling Sheffield are a really big part of promoting Sheffield. Is that kind of outdoor city, aren't they? And you know, with your marketing hat on, where do we go next? What does the future
Yeah,
look
that's
like?
the big question, you see, because you know, like Dave just mentioned now, we've got the pathway from the youth element of it. So on a Monday night they're training at Forge Valley. Like I say, in the outdoor city, they've got all wrapped around the social media that's thrust upon youngsters these days. They see that as a platform, and they can actually see a way to get onto the team through training on a Monday night, race on Wednesday night at the White Rose Youth League, and then eventually at 16, 17, 18, and then with a view to going on to ride for Cycling Sheffield. So there's definitely that pathway there for them, and I think you know, young Isaac Oliver is probably on that pathway possibly, because he's come through right through the system, and that's really nice to see that it would be a product of that. I know we kind of had Connor in a way, but you know, that was kind of pre-Cycling Sheffield, you know. So it'll be, I guess, where we live is absolutely perfect. You know, you know, I wouldn't be sat on this panel now if I didn't mention the Strines. You know, so you've got that's Sir James. You know, we're surrounded by fantastic scenery, countryside that delivers a great platform to be able to train on. You know, Russ and Dean have proven that really going out. I don't think Dean was spent too much time on the Strides, did you, Dean? No, but you know, out to the Peak District, you know, it's perfect, and I think you've got, you know, we're talking with Sam who's from down in Loughborough. You know, he's enthused about coming up to ride in the Peak District. So I think the sooner we can get a national A race back in the Peak District, the better.
Yeah, right. And obviously the more people on bikes, the better, Max. And it would be remiss not to finish with a comment from you about, you know, cycling and your reflections.
I was just going to say about the Outdoor City brand and where that goes next. I've had some conversation with Mark Mobbs, who heads up marketing Sheffield, and I was involved in that from the start, and the setting up of that brand, and it's evolved quite a lot from what was like a standalone website and a brand and a way to attract tourists into the city, but a way to give the city a really strong identity, not forgetting the industrial heritage, but just to appreciate the fact, you know, it's one of the only city in the UK with Peak District National Park within its boundaries, the most trees, the highest proportion of green space and countryside in any city that there is. So just to give that brand in there, and it was quite a separate thing. And now what they're trying to do for marketing at a city level is to bring that all together. It's not something different, it's everything, it's part of everything else that's going on in Sheffield. So the Outdoor City is kind of a brand that not on its own, but something that when we're talking about anything to do with Sheffield, the outdoor office should be part of that. So where we were trying to go in terms of direction is to create like an outdoor manifesto for the city. So to go out there and say, Sheffield punches above its weight in terms of the outdoors, in terms of what we've got in cycling, road cycling and mountain biking, but also opportunities, you know, from the ground and for everybody to cycle on. You know, I'm sure we've all got complaints about bits of the infrastructure in the city, but also some really amazing and unique places. So it's all about kind of putting those benchmarks in place, so saying, what does Sheffield do? We've got this many trees, we've got professional cycling teams. The events in Sheffield are absolutely outstanding for cycling and for other sports, running, walking festivals like the summit I was at yesterday. I'm trying to bring all these things together and go out there with kind of a statement of intent to say Sheffield is absolutely punching above its weight. And if you want to be an outdoor city, great, but how do you measure up to what we've got here in Sheffield? Because we've got all these things here. So I thought it might just be a positive to kind of wrap things together at the end. Cycling's absolute front and centre to that, undoubtedly. That's why it was part of the 4 sports in the Outdoor City brand at the onset, because it's got some really unique, distinctive and special things here and special people as well. So yeah, keep building on that and use that as something that can really help placemaking and economic development and the profile of Sheffield externally and internally as well.
Great, thanks Max.
I think, Rob, that as well, just to back that up, that it's starting to work. 'Cause we're getting, as you know, the club secretary hat on. We're getting members join from further afield, come up from London, Coventry, etc. Simon, you know, I guess that's probably maybe why I attracted you to come to Sheffield from London, was it? So yeah, so I think, you know, it's an attractive place to be able to ride your bike, go out at night. You know, there's everything there really. So it's testament to what's sort of gone on in the last sort of 5-7 years, and it is starting to work now, because when you ride to work in the morning, there's lots of cyclists. You know, despite the terrible infrastructure, people are still. I mean, yeah, I mean, not going to beat about the bush. There's still people riding to work on bikes, and you know, there's a big shift now. You see, you pull up at the traffic lights, and 2 or 3 people pull alongside you. It's not hors like London, but it's a tough place to ride a bike in Sheffield. But it's starting to flush them out as well.
Great. Well, thanks ever so much to the panel. Dave, can I just hand over to you to close the event?
Yeah. Thanks, Rob. So, yeah, I'd just like to thank everyone for taking the time out of the day to come along. Great to see our partners and supporters, and people that maybe just follow us on social media. Just thanks ever so much for what you're doing, supporting us, making the time to come along, and I hope we can keep you engaged and work with you.
Right.
Thank you.
And thanks to our panel.